When do we use vulnerability? There's a lot of talk now about showing vulnerability as a leader and also as a human being and being authentic. And that might look different to different people. It might mean admitting that I don't have all the answers right now, or actually I'm a little bit worried about how this is going to turn out. And one of the ways that I like to use vulnerability is when sharing personal challenges. Now, that has connotations for an organization, not just in the performance arena, but also in the well-being arena, because when we're sharing personal challenges, we're giving other people permission to talk up about theirs. But it's important to understand, to know when we're using vulnerability for as a force for good and when we're just using it as a soapbox to kind of vent our own problems. So the example I have is unitasking. I talk a lot about unitasking. The benefit is that we perform better and we feel better. And unitasking is simply focusing on one thing at a time and choosing what that one thing is. However, it's not surprising that there are a lot of barriers out there. We live in a world where we're surrounded by distractions, our own wandering minds, our need to please people. So there's a lot of barriers that get in the way of us unitasking. And I remember when I started out talking about these barriers, I used to say, these are some of the common objections that people come to me with. But what I was doing there is I was distancing myself. And what I was really saying was, you have these barriers, but I've got it all figured out. And so potentially people in the audience are thinking, well, she thinks she's different, therefore I'm being attacked, therefore my barriers are coming up, and they're not engaging. So what I learned to do was to frame them as my barriers. Now, the truth is they're probably the same for lots of other people, but I'm taking personal responsibility and I'm showing a little bit of vulnerability. So I might say, look, I know that if I unitask, I will perform better, but I'll be honest, I've got a real problem saying no to people. And, I really struggled with this for a long time. And then this is what I worked out to overcome this challenge. So when you show that little bit of vulnerability and you share it as your own personal challenge, what you're doing is you're making it safe for other people to recognize themselves in what you're saying and give themselves permission to put their own barriers down and then maybe grow together. So something just to think about where and when we use vulnerability. And my kind of top tip would be use vulnerability when we want to break down barriers, when we want to say, I'm just like you. And therefore we can build that rapport. We don't use it just to make ourselves feel better and have a kind of paid therapy session, which I'm sure you would never dream of doing. But I'd love to hear what you think. When do you use vulnerability? How have you managed to help other people by sharing, one of your own vulnerabilities? And, when is the time to not share vulnerability and actually kind of lead from the front and show a little bit of strength? I'd love to know your thoughts. Do let me know, as always, comment below.